If you had 30 minutes to change your life, would you trust the wrong stranger? Rain streaks across the windshield as Emily Carter pulls the car door shut behind her, chest rising fast, her breath fogging the glass as neon lights blur outside in long, trembling lines. And for a second, nothing feels right. Not the silence, not the route, not the man behind the wheel, and definitely not the app on her phone flashing a frozen screen that refuses to load. Wait, this isn't my ride, she says, her voice tight but controlled, forcing calm even as her pulse spikes. But the driver doesn't react the way she expects. No apology, no confusion, just a quiet glance through the rearview mirror, steady, unreadable, like he's measuring something she can't see. And that unsettles her more than anything else. The car keeps moving, turning onto a street she doesn't recognize, narrower, darker, farther from downtown, farther from the glass building where her interview starts in exactly 28 minutes. The interview she walked 2 miles in the rain to make, the one. Chance standing between her and losing everything. Her fingers tighten around her phone, refreshing again. Nothing, no signal, no cancel button, no way out except the man driving. Can you pull over? She asks, softer now, choosing not to escalate, choosing patience even as anxiety coils tighter in her chest. And for a moment, she considers opening the door, running, finding another ride. But then she notices it. The faint flicker on the dashboard, the gas light blinking low, the worn edges of his jacket, the way his hands grip the wheel just a little too carefully, like someone holding on to the last thread of something fragile. And something in her shifts, just slightly, enough to pause, enough to look again. Long night? She asks quietly, surprising even herself, and the man hesitates before answering, his voice calm but distant, something like that. And the car hums forward through the rain as seconds tick louder in her mind. 25 minutes now, maybe less. Every instinct tells her to focus on herself, her future, her survival. But instead she exhales slowly, reaching into her bag, fingers brushing against the last folded bills she has, money meant for food, for tomorrow, for anything but this, and she presses it forward, offering it between the seats, in case you need it. She says, barely above a whisper, not looking at him as she does, because it feels easier that way, easier to give without expecting anything back. And for the first time, the driver goes still, completely still, like the world outside has paused with him, like this small, quiet choice has changed something neither of them can yet name. And as the rain keeps falling, neither of them realizes that this wrong ride is about to take them somewhere neither of them planned. The bill stays in his hand longer than it should, like it weighs more than $20, and Emily can feel the shift in the air even without looking at him. Something quiet but undeniable. And then he finally speaks, softer this time. You should keep it. But she shakes her head immediately, eyes still fixed on the rain sliding down the window in uneven lines. I know what it is like to need help and not get it, she says. And that is all. No explanation, no story, just a truth that lands between them heavier than anything else. And for a moment, neither of them moves. The car rolling forward through a yellow light as the city grows dimmer, quieter, until suddenly the engine gives a subtle stutter, barely noticeable at first. Then again, stronger, the dashboard flickering, and Emily turns sharply. What was that? But before he can answer, the car slows, then drifts to the side of the road, coming to a stop beneath a flickering street lamp, the rain tapping harder now, filling the silence that follows. I am sorry, he says, almost too calmly, like he expected this, like it was already part of the night. It has been doing that lately. And Emily closes her eyes for a second, calculating, counting, 20 minutes left, maybe less, the interview slipping further out of reach with every second she stays here. She could get out now, try to run, find another ride, hope for a miracle. But when she opens her eyes, she sees him already stepping out into the rain, pulling his thin jacket tighter as he walks around to the front of the car, lifting the hood. And without thinking, she opens her door too, the cold air hitting her instantly as rain soaks through her sleeves. You do not have to do that, he calls over the sound of the storm, but she is already beside him, peering into the dark engine like she understands any of it. I do not, she replies, brushing wet hair from her face. But I am not leaving you here either. And that is when he looks at her fully, not through the mirror, not from a distance, but directly, like he is trying to read something deeper than words, and she feels it, that weight again, that strange sense that this moment matters more than it should. You are going to miss something important, he says quietly, almost like a warning, and she lets out a small breath that turns into a laugh she did not expect. Yeah, she admits, glancing down the empty street. Probably the most important thing I have right now. And for a second, regret flickers across her face, real and sharp, but it does not stay, because she shrugs, like letting it go is easier than holding on. But I guess that is how life works, right? She adds, reaching out to steady the loose battery cable he is struggling with, her hands shaking slightly from the cold but steady enough to help. And he watches her again, this time longer, like he is memorizing every small detail. The way she chooses to stay, the way she gives without being asked, the way she does not complain even as everything is slipping away from her. And somewhere behind that calm expression, a decision is forming, quiet but certain. As the rain continues to fall around them, and the city moves on without noticing that something just changed. In the middle of a broken street, the rain softens but the silence between them grows louder, and Emily can feel it now, that strange weight in the air, like this moment is stretching beyond what it should be, like time itself is slowing just enough to let something important settle in. And then suddenly the engine coughs again, this time stronger, and the headlights flicker back to life. Try it now, she says, stepping back as he slides into the driver's seat, turning the key slowly, carefully, and the car responds with a low, steady hum, not perfect, but enough, and he exhales quietly, almost like he did not expect it to work. You did not have to stay, he says again, but there is something different in his voice. Now, something closer to curiosity than distance, and Emily shrugs, wiping her wet hands on her jeans as she climbs back into the passenger seat, water dripping from her sleeves onto the floor. You did not have to let me, she replies, and for the first time, there is the faintest hint of a smile at the corner of his mouth, barely there, almost hidden, but real. And as the car pulls back onto the road, the city slowly returning around them, Emily glances at the time, her stomach dropping. 15 minutes. No way she is making it now. Not through traffic. Not from here. And she leans her head back against the seat, closing her eyes for just a second, letting the reality settle in. The interview is gone. The chance is gone. Everything she worked towards slipping quietly out of reach. And yet, strangely, there is no anger, no sharp edge of regret, just a quiet acceptance that surprises even her. You should be upset, he says after a moment, watching her reflection in the mirror. Most people would be. And she lets out a soft breath, opening her eyes again, staring ahead at the blurred lights. Most people probably have more to lose, she answers honestly, then pauses, correcting herself with a small shake of her head. No, that is not true. I had a lot to lose, I do not think leaving you there would have helped me win anything. And the words hang there, simple but heavy. And this time he does not look away, his gaze steady, searching, as if confirming something he has been testing all along. And just then, his phone lights up on the dashboard, a call coming in, the name flashing briefly before he turns it face down, but not before Emily catches a glimpse, a single word that feels out of place. Headquarters, and she frowns slightly, something not quite adding up, but before she can ask, another car pulls up beside them at a red light, the driver leaning out just enough to shout something sharp and dismissive about cheap rides and broken cars, the kind of careless judgment that lands without thought. And Emily's expression shifts instantly, her exhaustion replaced by something firmer, something protective. Hey, she calls out through the open window, her voice steady despite everything. At least he is out here working. Instead of judging strangers, and the other driver scoffs, speeding off as the light changes. But the moment lingers, quiet and undeniable, and when she turns back, she catches him looking at her again, not with curiosity this time, but with something deeper, something resolved, like a decision has just been made. And as the car moves forward into the city lights, neither of them says it out loud, but the night has already changed everything. The car glides back into the glow of downtown lights, but something inside it has shifted, something quieter and deeper than the rain-soaked streets they just left behind. And Emily feels it even as exhaustion begins to settle into her bones, the kind that comes not just from a long day, but from letting go of something you cannot get back. And she checks the time again. The numbers confirming what she already knows. The interview is over. Doors closed before she ever had the chance to walk through them. And for a moment, she lets herself imagine what it would have been like. The polished floors, the firm handshake, the single opportunity to prove she was more than her circumstances. But instead she is here, in a car that still smells faintly of rain and engine heat, beside a man she does not know. And strangely, she does not feel like she made the wrong choice. "Where should I drop you?" he asks, his voice steady but carrying a weight that was not there before, and she hesitates. Because the truth is she does not really have a place that feels like an answer, just a small rented room on the edge of the city, a space that holds more worries than comfort. "Anywhere is fine," she says at first, then corrects herself with a small smile. "Actually, there is a diner a few blocks from here, open all night. I can walk from there." And he nods, turning onto a brighter street where people move quickly under umbrellas, unaware of the quiet story unfolding just feet away. And as they drive, the silence returns, but it is no longer tense. It is reflective, like both of them are replaying the same moments in their own way. And after a few seconds, he speaks again. "Why did you stay?" And this time the question is not casual. It is direct, intentional, and Emily looks out the window before answering, watching the city blur past. "Because leaving would have been easier," she says slowly, choosing each word like it matters. And easy does not always mean right. And he absorbs that, really absorbs it, the way someone does when they are not just listening but measuring truth. And the car finally pulls up outside the diner, its neon sign flickering softly against the wet pavement. And she reaches for the door, pausing just long enough to glance back at him. "You should get that engine checked," she says lightly, trying to bring the moment back to something simple, something normal. But he nods in a way that feels anything but casual. "I will," he replies, and there is a pause, one of those rare, fragile pauses where something more could be said, something that might change everything. But instead, she just smiles, small and genuine, and steps out into the cool night air, pulling her jacket tighter as she walks toward the diner without looking back. Because some moments are not meant to be held onto. And inside the car, Daniel Hayes does not move right away, his hands still resting on the wheel, his eyes following her reflection in the glass until it disappears completely. And only then does he reach for his phone, turning it back over, the screen lighting up instantly with multiple missed calls and messages, all from the same place, all waiting. And this time, when he answers, his voice is no longer quiet or uncertain. It is clear, controlled, unmistakably different. "Find everything you can about her," he says calmly, his gaze still fixed on the diner door, "and prepare an offer." And as the line goes silent, the city continues on as if nothing has changed. But somewhere between a wrong ride and a simple act of kindness, a decision has just been made that will bring their worlds crashing back together in a way neither of them expects. The bell above the diner door rings softly as Emily steps inside, the warmth wrapping around her like a quiet contrast to the cold night she just left behind. And for a moment, she just stands there, letting the smell of coffee and fried food settle her thoughts, grounding her in something familiar, something simple, because everything else feels uncertain now. And she slides into a booth near the window, her reflection faint in the glass, rain still tracing slow lines down the outside. And she exhales, long and steady, like she has been holding her breath for hours, the weight of the missed interview finally catching up to her, not as panic, but as a quiet ache, the kind that settles deep and lingers. And a waitress walks over, placing a menu in front of her with a practiced smile. But Emily barely glances at it. "Just coffee, please," she says, her voice calm, almost too calm-like. She is protecting herself from thinking too far ahead. And as the waitress leaves, Emily pulls her hands together on the table, noticing the faint grease under her nails from the engine, the rain still damp on her sleeves, and she lets out a small laugh under her breath, soft and almost disbelieving. "What did you just do?" she whispers to herself, not in regret, but in quiet disbelief at the path she chose. And yet, when she closes her eyes, she does not see the office she missed. She sees the man in the driver's seat, the way he looked at her like her choices mattered, like they revealed something real. And she shakes her head slightly, pushing the thought away, because it does not change anything. He was just a driver, just a stranger passing through her life for a moment, nothing more, and yet something about it refuses to feel that simple. And across the street, unnoticed by her, a black car idles quietly, its presence subtle but deliberate, and inside, a man in a tailored coat speaks into a phone, his voice low, controlled. She is inside, he says, eyes fixed on the diner window, and on the other end, instructions come quickly, efficiently, names, background checks, timelines, and he nods once. Understood. Before hanging up, his gaze never leaving the figure sitting alone with a cup of coffee she can barely afford, and back inside. Emily wraps her hands around the warm mug as it is placed in front of her, the heat seeping into her skin, grounding her again, and she stares into the dark surface for a moment before taking a slow sip, letting the bitterness settle on her tongue, and her phone buzzes suddenly, the sound sharp in the quiet space, and she picks it up, her heart lifting just slightly. Before she reads the message, a polite but final note from the company she was supposed to meet tonight, informing her that the position has been filled, that her opportunity has passed, and she swallows, nodding to herself like she expected it, like she had already prepared for this exact moment, and she sets the phone down carefully, refusing to let it break her, not tonight, not after everything. And instead she reaches into her bag, pulling out a small, worn notebook, flipping it open to a blank page, her pen hovering for just a second before she begins to write. Not about failure, not about loss, but about what comes next, because if tonight proved anything, it is that she is still the kind of person who chooses what is right over what is easy, and somewhere outside, in the quiet hum of the city, that choice is already setting something much bigger into motion. The pen moves slowly at first, then faster, as if the words have been waiting for a moment like this to finally come out. And Emily leans over the table, shoulders slightly hunched, completely unaware of the quiet attention gathering around her beyond the diner walls. Her handwriting steady despite everything she has just lost, and she writes not about the job she missed, not about the rejection sitting cold on her phone screen, but about starting over, about finding another way, because something inside her refuses to break, refuses to let one closed door define the rest of her life. And as she pauses, tapping the pen lightly against the page, she glances up at the window again, the rain now softer, almost fading, like the storm has already passed for the rest of the world, even if she is still standing in its aftermath. And across the street, the black car remains, engine running low, invisible to anyone not looking for it. And inside, the man in the tailored coat receives another message, this one shorter, more precise, background confirmed. And he reads it once before forwarding it, his expression unchanged, as if this is just another routine task, another file being processed. But the truth is, nothing about this night is routine anymore, and several miles away, in a building that rises high above the city with glass walls reflecting every light below, Daniel Hayes steps out of an elevator into a space that feels like a different world entirely, clean, controlled, powerful. And the moment he enters, the atmosphere shifts instantly, assistants straightening, conversations pausing, eyes following him with quiet respect. But he barely acknowledges any of it, his focus already elsewhere, his mind replaying a single image over and over again, a woman standing in the rain, choosing to stay when she had every reason to leave. And he walks into his office, the door closing behind him with a soft click that seals off the noise of the world. And within seconds, the phone on his desk lights up, the same number calling again. And this time, he answers without hesitation. "Tell me," he says simply, and the voice on the other end begins listing details. Her name, Emily Carter, part-time jobs, late rent notices, no criminal record, no shortcuts, no hidden advantages. Just someone trying to hold everything together with whatever she has left. And Daniel listens without interrupting, his expression unreadable. But his silence speaks louder than any reaction. And when the voice finishes, there is a brief pause, the kind that usually signals the end of a routine report. But instead, Daniel leans back slightly, his gaze drifting to the city beyond the glass, the same city she is still sitting in, unaware that her life has just been placed under a different kind of attention. "Set up a meeting," he says finally, calm and decisive. "Make it official." And on the other end, there is a slight hesitation, a break from the usual pattern. For what position? The voice asks carefully, and for the first time, Daniel allows a faint, almost imperceptible smile to form. Create one. He replies, his tone steady, certain, like the decision has already been made long before this conversation. And back in the diner, Emily closes her notebook, unaware of the ripple she has set into motion, finishing the last of her coffee as if it is just another night, just another quiet ending, not knowing that somewhere between a wrong turn and a simple choice to be kind, she has just changed the direction of something far bigger than herself. The night ends quietly, almost too quietly for something that should have felt heavier, and Emily steps out of the diner with her jacket pulled tight around her, the air cooler now, the rain reduced to a soft mist that clings to the streetlights and turns everything into a muted glow. And for a moment she just stands there, looking up at the sky like she is searching for something, maybe a sign, maybe a reason, but nothing answers back except the distant hum of the city moving on without her. And she exhales slowly, adjusting the strap of her bag before starting the walk back to her apartment. Each step steady even if her future feels anything but, and behind her, the black car finally pulls away, disappearing into traffic as if it was never there, as if the night is closing its chapter without leaving any trace. But miles away, high above the city, the lights in Daniel's office remain on long after most of the building has gone dark, and he stands by the window, looking out over the streets where everything looks small, simple, distant, but his thoughts are anything but, replaying every word, every choice she made. Not because they were dramatic, but because they were not, because they were quiet, real, uncalculated. And that is exactly what he has been searching for without ever admitting it. And behind him, his assistant steps into the room carefully, holding a folder that should have been just another routine document. Everything is ready, she says, placing it on the desk. But she does not leave right away. There is a question lingering, one she hesitates to ask. Are you sure about this? And Daniel does not turn immediately, his gaze still fixed on the city below. I am, he answers simply. And when he finally looks back, there is no hesitation in his expression, no doubt, just a clarity that makes the decision feel inevitable. She did not know who I was, he adds, almost to himself, like that is the only explanation that matters. And the assistant nods slowly, understanding more than she says, before stepping out and closing the door behind her, leaving him alone again with the quiet certainty of what comes next. And the following morning arrives like any other for Emily, the alarm ringing too early, the room still dim, the weight of yesterday lingering in the corners, but she does not let herself stay there. She gets up, gets dressed, moves forward because that is what she has always done, and as she steps outside, the city feels different, not because anything has changed, but because she has, even if only slightly, and she walks with the same determination, the same quiet resilience that carried her through the night before, unaware that somewhere across town, her name has already been placed on a list that will change everything. And as she turns the corner toward another uncertain day, a sleek black car slows at the curb ahead of her, the window lowering just enough for a familiar voice to speak, calm, steady, unmistakable, Emily. And in that single moment, everything she thought was left behind the night before begins to catch up to her all at once. Emily freezes mid-step, her breath catching as she turns toward the car, her mind racing to place the voice before her eyes fully confirm what she is seeing. And there he is, the same quiet driver from the night before, but everything about him feels different now. The car no longer worn or struggling but sleek and polished, the presence around him sharper, more defined. Like the version of him she met was only a shadow of something much larger. And for a second, she just stands there, unsure whether to step closer or walk away. How do you know my name? She asks, her voice careful, guarded, and he holds her gaze steadily. No hesitation, no attempt to soften the moment. Because I asked. He replies simply, and that answer lands heavier than it should, because it confirms something she did not want to assume, that none of last night was entirely accidental, and she takes a small step back, instinctively putting space between them. You looked me up, she says, the words edged with disbelief, not anger yet, but something close to it, and he nods once, not apologizing, not denying, just acknowledging the truth. I needed to. he says, and that only makes it worse, because now the quiet kindness of the night before feels complicated, layered with intention she did not see, and Emily crosses her arms slightly, grounding herself, trying to understand where this is going. Why? She asks. And this time there is no softness in her tone, only a direct demand for honesty. And Daniel studies her for a moment, like he is deciding how much to reveal, before finally stepping out of the car, closing the distance just enough to speak without raising his voice. Because people do not usually stay, he says, his words calm but carrying something deeper beneath them. Not when it costs them something. And she hears it, the implication, the test that was never spoken out loud, and her expression tightens. So that is what this was, she replies, a quiet frustration breaking through. Some kind of experiment. And for the first time, there is a flicker of something in his expression, not guilt, but recognition, like he understands exactly how this looks from her side. No, he answers, slower now, more deliberate. It was supposed to be just another night. And then he pauses, letting that settle before continuing. Until you made it something else. And that stops her, just for a second, because part of her knows he is telling the truth, but it does not erase the fact that he followed her, that he knows things about her he should not. And she shakes her head slightly, trying to regain control of the moment. You still have not explained why you are here, she says. And this time, he does not hesitate at all, reaching into the car and pulling out a simple envelope, holding it out toward her without forcing it into her hands. Because I want to offer you something, he says, his voice steady, certain, like the decision has already been made. And Emily looks at the envelope, but does not take it yet. Her instincts pulling her in two directions at once, curiosity and caution, and she meets his eyes again, searching for something real, something she can trust. And what exactly do you think I want from you? She asks quietly, and Daniel's answer comes without hesitation, without calculation. A fair chance, he says, and the simplicity of it catches her off guard, because it is not about money, not about power, not about anything she expected, and for a moment, the noise of the city fades again, leaving just the two of them standing there, on the edge of something neither of them can fully see. Yet, and slowly, carefully, Emily reaches out and takes the envelope, knowing that whatever is inside it is going to change everything. The envelope feels heavier than it should in Emily's hands, like it carries more than just paper, like it holds a decision she is not ready to make yet. And for a moment she just stands there on the sidewalk, the morning traffic moving around them, people passing by, without noticing the quiet tension between two worlds about to collide, and she looks down at it, her fingers tightening slightly along the edge before she finally opens it, slow and careful, like she is bracing herself for whatever is inside. And the first thing she sees is not a letter, not a simple offer, but a clean, structured document, official, precise, the kind she has only ever seen from a distance. And her eyes move across the lines, reading once, then again, because it does not make sense at first. The position, the salary, the benefits, everything laid out in a way that feels too complete, too immediate, like it was prepared specifically for her. And she looks up quickly, her expression shifting from confusion to disbelief. This is not real, she says, her voice low but firm, as if saying it out loud will ground her back into something she understands. But Daniel does not flinch, does not correct her in a way that feels exaggerated. He simply meets her gaze. It is, he replies, calm as ever, and that calmness unsettles her more than anything else, because it means he is not trying to convince her. He already knows the truth, and Emily shakes her head slightly, stepping back again, the distance between them returning instinctively. You cannot just offer something like this to someone you met one night, she says, and there is more in her voice now. Not just doubt, but a quiet resistance, because accepting something this big would mean acknowledging that last night was not just a moment. It was something that changed everything, and she is not sure she is ready for that. And Daniel watches her carefully, not pushing, not interrupting, letting her process it in her own time. I am not offering it because I met you, he says after a second, his tone steady, deliberate. I am offering it because of what you chose when you thought it would cost you everything. And those words land deeper than the document in her hands, because they pull her back to the rain, to the broken car, to the moment she decided to stay, not knowing it would lead here, and she exhales slowly, her grip on the paper loosening just slightly. "So this is a reward?" she asks, and there is something fragile in that question, something she does not want to admit, and he shakes his head once, immediately. "No," he answers. "It is an opportunity. And the difference matters, even if she is not sure why yet." And she looks down at the document again, this time reading more carefully, seeing not just the numbers, but the role itself, something designed, something intentional. And she realizes that this is not random, this is not charity. It is something built around what he saw in her. And that realization shifts something inside her, not completely, not enough to erase her hesitation, but enough to make her pause instead of walk away. And when she looks back up, her eyes are searching his again, not for answers this time, but for truth. "And what happens if I say no?" she asks quietly, and Daniel does not hesitate, not even for a second. Then nothing changes. He says, simple and honest, "You walk away, and I respect that." And the sincerity in that answer catches her off guard, because it gives her something she did not expect: control. And for the first time since he called her name, the tension in her shoulders eases just slightly, because this is not about being pulled into something she cannot escape. It is about choosing. And as she stands there, the city continuing around them, Emily Carter realizes that this moment, this choice, is not about him. It is about who she wants to be next. Emily stands still for a long moment, the city noise fading into something distant and unimportant as her eyes move between the document in her hands and the man in front of her. And for the first time since this began, she is not reacting, she is deciding. And that difference settles into her posture, straightening her shoulders just slightly as she exhales slowly, grounding herself in the moment. "You said this is an opportunity," she begins, her voice calm but firmer now, no longer uncertain. "So what exactly are you expecting in return?" And the question hangs there, clear and direct, because she has learned that nothing this big ever comes without a cost. And Daniel does not answer immediately, not because he is searching for words, but because he is choosing them carefully, respecting the weight of what she is asking. "Honesty," he says finally, and the simplicity of it makes her pause, her brow tightening slightly as if she expected something more complicated. "That is it." She presses, not fully convinced, and he nods once, steady and certain. "That is it," he repeats. "I am building something that needs people who do not pretend to be something they are not." And there is no pitch in his tone, no attempt to impress her, just a quiet truth that feels strangely consistent with everything she saw the night before. And Emily looks down at the paper again, reading the lines more slowly now, seeing not just the numbers or the title, but the intention behind it, the space it creates. And for a second, doubt flickers again, not about him this time, but about herself. "You do not know if I can do this," she says, almost more to herself than to him. And Daniel steps a little closer, not enough to invade her space, but enough to be clear. "I know you can choose," he replies, and that answer lands deeper than she expects, because it is not about skills or experience. It is about something harder to measure, something she cannot fake. And she lets out a small breath, her eyes drifting past him for a moment as she takes it all in. The car, the street, the life she was about to walk back into, and the one now being placed in front of her. And she realizes that standing here, she is already different from the person she was yesterday, not because of what happened to her, but because of what she chose to do when it mattered. And slowly, she folds the document back into the envelope, holding it more carefully this time, not like something fragile, but like something important. And when she looks back up, there is a quiet clarity in her expression. "If I say yes," she says, her voice steady now, "it is not because of the money." And Daniel does not interrupt, does not react, just listens. "Because this part matters. It is because I want to know if I can become someone who deserves it," she finishes, and there is a brief silence after that, the kind that feels like a line has just been crossed, not loudly, not dramatically, but in a way that changes everything moving forward. And Daniel nods once, a small acknowledgement that carries more meaning than words. "Then say yes," he says simply. And for a moment, Emily hesitates, not because she is unsure, but because she understands exactly what she is stepping into. And then, without looking away, she answers, "Yes." And the word is quiet, almost understated, but it lands with a finality that echoes far beyond the street they are standing on. And as the morning continues around them, ordinary and unchanged, Emily Carter takes the first step into a life she never expected, while Daniel Hayes watches with a calm certainty, knowing that this is only the beginning of something neither of them fully understands yet. The first day does not feel real, not at first, and as the car pulls up in front of the towering glass building, Emily tilts her head slightly just to take it in. The height, the reflection of the sky across every panel, the quiet sense of scale that makes everything else seem smaller, including her, and for a moment she hesitates before stepping out, her shoes hitting the polished sidewalk with a soft, final sound, like crossing a line she cannot step back over, and Daniel is already moving ahead, not waiting, not guiding, just assuming she will follow, and she does, because something in her has already decided this is where she needs to be, even if she does not fully understand why yet. And inside, everything is brighter, sharper, the air cooler, the movement more controlled, people walking with purpose, voices low and efficient, and as she steps through the lobby, she can feel the shift immediately, the glances, quick but noticeable, not unkind, just curious, because she does not look like she belongs here, not yet, and she straightens her posture slightly, reminding herself why she said yes, not for them, not for the building, but for what this could become, and they move toward the elevator, the doors opening without delay, like everything here responds faster than she is used to, and as they step inside, the silence returns, but it feels different now, less uncertain, more focused, and she glances at him briefly, noticing the way others greet him with quiet respect, the subtle nods, the immediate attention, and something clicks into place, something she already suspected but had not fully accepted, and when the elevator doors open onto the top floor, the space is quieter, more refined, and as they walk forward, a woman approaches with a tablet in hand, her tone professional but warm. "Mr. Hayes, everything is ready." And the name lands like a quiet confirmation, not a surprise, but a truth finally spoken out loud, and Emily slows just slightly, her mind catching up to the reality of it. Not just a driver, not just someone passing through, but someone who owns everything around her, and yet, he does not look different to her, not really, still the same calm presence from the night before, just seen from a different angle, and they enter a glass-walled room, the city stretching out behind it like a backdrop, and he gestures toward a seat, simple, direct, and she sits, placing the envelope carefully on the table, her hands steady even if her thoughts are moving faster now, and within seconds, others begin to enter, a small group, composed, attentive, each carrying something, documents, devices, expectations, and she realizes this is not just an introduction, it is a beginning, something already in motion before she even arrived, and one of them steps forward, offering a brief explanation of the role, the structure, the resources available. But Emily is not just listening to the words, she is watching, observing, noticing how everything connects, how decisions move quickly here, how nothing is wasted, and when they finish, there is a pause, a subtle shift in attention back to her, and Daniel finally speaks, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority she did not hear the night before. "This position exists because I believe it should," he says, not to impress, not to justify, just to state a fact, and then his gaze meets hers directly, cutting through everything else in the room. Now it depends on what you do with it, and the simplicity of that lands deeper than any formal introduction, because it brings everything back to her, her choices, her actions, her ability to turn this into something real, and for a second, she feels the weight of it, the expectation, the opportunity, the risk, all of it pressing in at once, but instead of pulling back, she leans forward slightly, her voice steady, clear. "Then I will start by learning everything I can." And there is no hesitation in that answer. No attempt to sound impressive, just a quiet commitment that feels more powerful than anything else she could have said. And around the table, there is a subtle shift, not dramatic, not obvious, but enough to be felt, because in that moment, Emily Carter is no longer just the girl who walked in from the rain. She is someone stepping into a space that will either shape her or be shaped by her. And for the first time since she walked through those doors, it feels like she belongs there, not because of the offer she accepted, but because of the choice she continues to make. The room slowly clears after the meeting, voices fading into the background as people step out with quiet efficiency, leaving behind only the soft hum of the city through the glass walls and the weight of everything that was just set in motion. And Emily remains seated for a moment longer than necessary, her fingers resting lightly on the table as she takes it all in, not the luxury of the space, not the scale of the company, but the responsibility that now sits directly in front of her. And when she finally stands, it is not hesitant, it is deliberate, like she is choosing this again, not just once on the street, but here, now, in a place that demands more than good intentions. And as she steps out into the hallway, the environment feels different already, not because it has changed, but because she is starting to see it more clearly, the patterns, the structure, the quiet pressure behind every interaction. And she walks with purpose, even if she does not yet know exactly where she is going, because standing still is no longer an option. And behind her, the door opens again, and Daniel steps out, his presence as composed as ever. But there is a subtle shift in his expression when he looks at her now, not just observation, but recognition, like she has already begun to meet the expectation he set, and he falls into step beside her without announcing it. The two of them moving through the corridor in a silence that no longer feels uncertain, and after a few seconds, he speaks, his tone quieter than before, less formal, more direct. Most people would have asked about the salary first, he says, and Emily lets out a small breath, almost a laugh, not dismissive, just honest. Most people probably would have walked away last night, she replies, and that answer lingers between them. Simple but layered, and he nods slightly, accepting it without pushing further, because it confirms something he already knows, and they reach a smaller office space, one that is clearly meant for her, prepared but not overly polished, functional, ready to be shaped. And she pauses at the doorway, taking in the desk, the empty shelves, the blank screen waiting to be turned on, and for a moment, it feels like standing at the beginning of something that has not yet been written, and she steps inside, placing her bag down slowly, her hand brushing over the surface of the desk like she is grounding herself again. And Daniel remains just outside the door, watching, not intruding, and then he speaks again, more quietly this time. You can still walk away, he says, not as a warning, but as a reminder, because he understands that choice is what makes this real. And Emily turns toward him, her expression calm but certain. I know, she answers, and there is no hesitation in her voice, no second guessing, because the truth is, she already made that decision before she walked through the doors, and this is just the continuation of it. And for a brief moment, their eyes meet, not as employer and employee, not as two people from different worlds, but as two individuals who saw something real in each other, when it mattered most. And then the moment passes, not broken, just absorbed into everything else that needs to happen next, and Daniel gives a small nod before stepping away, leaving her in the space that is now hers to define. And as the door closes softly behind him, Emily turns back to the desk, sitting down and opening her notebook from the night before, flipping to the page she wrote in the diner, and she reads the first line again, slowly, letting it settle in a different way now. Because this time, it is not about starting over, it is about building forward. And she picks up her pen, adding a new line beneath it, something simple, something clear, a direction instead of a question. And as she begins to write, the uncertainty that followed her into this building starts to shift into something else, something stronger, because for the first time in a long time, she is not just hoping for a chance, she is holding one, and what she does next will determine everything that follows. The office grows quieter as the day stretches on, sunlight shifting slowly across the glass walls and casting long reflections over the city below, and Emily remains at her desk, her notebook open, pages beginning to fill not with hesitation, but with structure, ideas forming into something tangible, something that feels like direction instead of survival. And every now and then she pauses, looking out at the skyline, not in distraction, but in realization, because this is no longer a place she is looking at from the outside. This is where she stands now, and that thought settles differently each time it returns, less overwhelming, more grounding. And across the floor, people move with purpose, conversations flowing around decisions she is not yet part of, but she listens, observes, learning the rhythm of a world that once felt unreachable, and she does not try to match it immediately. She studies it, understanding that rushing would only make her lose what made her different in the first place. And hours pass almost without her noticing, until a soft knock breaks her focus, and she looks up to see Daniel standing at the doorway, not interrupting, just present. And for a moment, neither of them speaks, because there is nothing urgent to say, just the quiet acknowledgement of everything that has changed since the night before. And he steps inside slowly, his gaze moving briefly across the notes she has written, not reading every word, but recognizing the intent behind them. "You started already," he says, his tone calm, but carrying a subtle approval, and Emily nods, closing the notebook gently. "I did not want to waste the chance," she replies, and there is no performance in her voice, just truth. And he studies her for a second longer, as if confirming that what he saw in the rain was not temporary, not situational, but something that continues even here, in a place where it would be easy to change. And he steps closer, resting a hand lightly against the edge of the desk. "Do you regret it?" he asks, not as a challenge, but as a genuine question, and Emily considers it, not quickly, not dismissively, but honestly, her eyes drifting for a moment as she reflects on everything that has happened: the wrong turn, the missed interview, the unexpected offer, the step into a life she never planned for. And then she looks back at him, her expression steady. "No," she answers, and the word carries weight because it is chosen, not assumed. "But I am still deciding what it means," she adds, and that answer lingers between them, not incomplete, but open, like the beginning of something still unfolding. And Daniel nods slightly, accepting that, understanding that not everything needs to be defined immediately, and he steps back, giving her space again, because that has always been part of this, the choice, the distance, the respect for who she is without forcing her into something else. And as he turns to leave, he pauses just long enough to say one more thing, his voice quieter now, almost reflective. "Most people would have seen me first," he says, and Emily watches him, understanding the meaning behind it without needing more explanation. "I saw the moment," she replies, just as quietly, and that answer stops him for a second, not in surprise, but in recognition, because that is exactly what set everything in motion, not who he was, but what she chose. And he gives a small nod before walking away, leaving her once again in the space she is beginning to make her own. And as the door closes, Emily opens her notebook again, her pen moving with more certainty now, because the question is no longer whether she belongs here. It is what she will build from this point forward. And somewhere beyond the glass walls, the city continues as it always has, unaware that in one quiet office, a simple act of kindness has already begun to reshape two lives in ways neither of them fully understands yet, but both are finally ready to discover.